Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome to a Steve Donoghue Top 10 Movie BroTube Challenge episode of Grammaticus Books. So the last one of these that Steve and I did was of Sword and Sorcery, and a lot of other booktubers joined in, and this is open to any booktuber who would like to throw their hat in the ring. But I picked the last genre, which was Sword and Sorcery, so Steve got to pick this one, and he picked historical dramas. And I was a little trepidatious. I had a little trepidation when he announced that genre. I was thinking that might be a difficult one to do. But then I started looking into it. I started thinking about it. And there are just a ton of epic historical dramas that Hollywood has done over the decades. And it's just it's a target-rich environment. So this should be a really good episode of the BroTube Top 10 Movie Challenge. Now, the way this usually works is I'll put mine up on Friday morning. Steve usually does his in the afternoon. But on this episode, there are a number of other booktubers who will also be joining in or should be joining in. And that's going to be Stygian Dogs, Mystery and Mayhem, Vintage SF, and DBB, or DDB, I should say, have all indicated that they may be joining in as well. And I'll link all their great channels down in the description of this video. And I encourage you to go check out their videos too. And like I said, if there's any other booktuber who wants to throw their hat into the ring, please have at. This is open to anybody. And for viewers, please put in the comments section what you think the top historical dramas are of all time. I would love to see what your thoughts are. So let's jump into it. Let's get right to it. What are the top 10 historical dramas going from 10 to 1? Oh, and there was one rule. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. If I did, I apologize. If I didn't, it was the historical drama had to be about a period of history prior to the Vietnam War. That was the one rule that Steve put onto the list. But as Steve always says, rules are made to be broken. So here we go. The top 10 list, starting with number 10. And number 10 on Grammaticus's list of the top 10 historical dramas of all time is the 2013 movie Rush by Ron Howard. It is a sports historical drama. It is sports history, and it is about the 1976 Formula F1 racing season and just the absolute epic contest that took place between the British racer James Hunt and the German racer Niki Lauda, with James Hunt racing for McLaren and Niki Lauda racing for Ferrari. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful historical drama about these two men with these two different personalities that are just pitting their skills on the racing track during this 1976 Formula F1 racing season. And they just have completely different personalities. James Hunt is the playboy who just goes out and parties all night, goes out on the racetrack, and his lifestyle off the track mimics his driving style on the track. He's just adventurous, he's reckless, just throwing himself with passion into all of his races. And then you have Niki Lauda, who is the prototypical German who just does everything by the book. Everything is calculated, precisely detailed out. Every single turn is mapped, and he drives with absolute precision. And these two go head-to-head in 1976, and it goes right down to the final race as to who wins the title. And James Hunt, who's played by Chris Hemsworth, and Niki Lauda, who's played by Daniel Bruhl, do fantastic jobs, especially Chris Hemsworth. He does just a really good job with this. And Ron Howard's directing with the filming of the racing scenes is spectacular. But James Hunt during this season actually is so reckless that he nearly gets Niki Lauda killed. And one of the things that was paramount that you had to understand about Formula One racing back in the 1970s is if you raced a total of 5 seasons in Formula One back in the 1970s and you raced every single race, you had a 20% chance of dying by the end of those 5 seasons. What other sport in the world where you could go up to somebody and say, hey, you can play this sport and you can potentially make millions of dollars, but there's a 20% chance you'll be dead by the end of 5 years? It was that dangerous back in the 1970s. And I think this historical drama between James Hunt and Niki Lauda by Ron Howard really captures the tension between these two men, the camaraderie that eventually developed between them, and just the danger that hovered over every race back in the 1970s in Formula One. And so it comes on my list at number 10. Now, you heard me say the one rule was it had to be prior to the Vietnam War, and I know 1976 is just squeaking a little bit on the wrong side of that divider line. But like Steve Donoghue says, rules are made to be broken, and I did bend it a little bit for this one, but I love this movie so much. And that's why I put it all the way down at number 10, though, it's because I did bend the rules a bit. Otherwise, it would have been a little higher. Additionally, the History Channel did a documentary on Niki Lauda and James Hunt that is fantastic. And if you can find it, I highly recommend watching that as well. So number 10, 2013 Rush by Ron Howard. And that brings us to number 9. Number 9 is 2012 movie Lincoln, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. I'll put it up over here. Directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Sally Field. And this chronicles the life of Lincoln leading up to the Emancipation Proclamation. It's 1865, and it's his struggle in order to work for the emancipation of the slaves, to get the slaves freed. And it's just an absolutely fantastic historical documentary that's put together there by Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest film directors of all time. It won 2 Academy Awards, and it won Daniel Day-Lewis a Best Actor Award, which is just absolutely fantastic for him. And it also won the AFI Movie of the Year Award. So it comes out at number 9, and that's 2012 Lincoln. So now we're at number 8. Number 8 is The King's Speech. Put it up over here. And that's 2010, directed by Tom Hooper, starring Colin Firth as King George VI. And this is King George leading up to his speech in 1939 in England, where he declared war on Germany. And it tracks his development into the role of king through this monarchy crisis that happens just prior to 1939 that he has to negotiate, and his struggle with a speech impediment that he has leading up to this just momentous radio program, radio broadcast that he has to put forth. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's filmed by Tom Hooper in very constricted spaces, very tight, narrow corridors, closed-in rooms to try to give you the feeling of claustrophobia and tension that King George VI was feeling leading up to this historic speech that he gives in 1939. It did win 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Colin Firth. I mean, it's just an absolutely wonderful film. It's not my typical fare, but it's so well done that I really like it, and I put it up here at number 8. I mean, how can you go wrong with Best Director, Best Picture, and a Best Actor, Academy Award, not just nominees, but award winners. Great film, and that's The King's Speech. So now we get to number 7, and number 7 is Schindler's List. You knew it had to be on here somewhere. Again, we've got Steven Spielberg, so we got 2 Steven Spielberg movies on here. This is the what year was Schindler's List? I want to say 1996 or 98. I'm going to have to look that up. I'll put it up above. It's based off of the 1982 novel called Schindler's Ark. And it is about Oskar Schindler, a German industrialist just prior to World War II and then going through World War II, who opens up a war factory, and then during the course of the war is convinced to try to save as many Jewish lives as he can by hiring all of these Polish Jews, primarily Polish Jews, to work in his factory, and then he does everything he can to keep them alive. And it stars Ben Kingsley and Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson as Oskar Schindler, and Ben Kingsley as his head accountant running the factory. And it's an absolutely wonderful flick. I mean, what can you say about it? It's just a massive hit. It was a huge movie when it came out. It was an event when it rolled out. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and 1 for Best Cinematography. And so it comes in at number 7, Schindler's List. So that leads us to number 6 of the top 10 historical dramas of all time. And now we're moving into the realm of epic Hollywood movies with the 1963 movie classic Cleopatra, starring, it's the life of Cleopatra, who's a descendant of the Ptolemies, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, whose on-screen chemistry was so good that it continued off-screen with a very famous scandalous affair that they had off-screen that was almost as newsworthy and noteworthy as the movie was itself. The movie got panned by the critics when it came out, but audiences loved it. They made it the #1 movie of 1963. It had huge box office success, and there's one scene in the movie that just puts it on here for me, and that is when Cleopatra enters Rome, when she comes to meet Caesar in Rome, and she has this procession that just comes right up to the Forum where Caesar is waiting for. And it is truly epic. And for that reason, it comes on here at number 6 on the list. So that's 10 through 6. And now we're going to move on to 5 through 1. And we're back for 5 through 1 in the historical dramas, the top 10 historical dramas of all time, BroTube Challenge. So what is number 5? Number 5 is The 10 Commandments, 1956, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, starring Charlton Heston, shot on location in and around Mount Sinai. You just don't get any more epic than that. Cast of thousands, Yul Brynner is the Pharaoh. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. It's one of those classics of Hollywood cinematic history. And in this film, Yul Brynner has as one of his outfits as Pharaoh, he has a pair of golden sandals that he wears through most of the movie. And these golden sandals are absolutely marvelous. The sandals themselves would have got this film onto my list here for top historical dramas. I want a pair of those sandals so badly. I tried to find a good photograph of them to put up here on the channel for this episode, but this is the best I could do with Yul Brynner and his golden sandals. I encourage you to go check it out. But number 5, 10 Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille, Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, just an absolutely fantastic film. Of course, chronicling the life of Moses, I should say. And that brings us to number 4. So number 4 is actually a TV series. It's not a movie. And it is the 1980 TV series Shogun, based off of the same name novel by James Clavell. And it was a great Shogun series that came out in 1980. It was 10 episodes for TV. It was an actual event. It was like a cultural event when it took place. And it chronicled the life of William Adams. Now, James Clavell changed the name of William Adams in his book to Jonathan Blackthorne, but it actually was the loosely based on the events of William Adams' exploration and discovery of the Japanese islands for the English back in 1596 or 1598, I think the date was. And they shot this all location in Japan. Again, it's starring Richard Chamberlain, Toshiro Mifune, John Rhys Davies, and it was just wonderfully done. Shot in these old Japanese castles on location in the areas where the novel was taking place. The acting is great. Richard Chamberlain does a fantastic job. John Rhys Davies steals every scene that he's in. And it was just an absolute TV event back in 1980. And for that reason, it comes on the list here at number 4. Just incidentally, the recent Shogun series by Hulu is wonderful. I had really had some doubts. I had some reservations based off of the trailers that got released. But it is really good. If you haven't checked that one out, I do encourage you to watch that one as well. So now we're down to the top 3. What is number 3? Number 3 is another one of those classic epic Hollywood dramas, historical dramas, cast of thousands. And it is the 1953 film Ben-Hur, again with Charlton Heston, but it's directed by William Wyler. It's got Charlton Heston as Judah Ben-Hur, and it also has Messala, who is his counterpart, the Roman governor who he grows up with, and then has this contest to the death, this contest that develops with him over the course of their life. And of course, the life of Jesus Christ is woven in and out of this struggle that takes place between Judah Ben-Hur and the Roman governor Messala there in Jerusalem. A fantastic movie. It has that classic scene, that chariot race scene that goes down as one of the greatest scenes ever filmed in cinematic history. They filmed it for 5 weeks. They filmed it over the course of 200 miles of track in order to get it right. And contrary to popular opinion, nobody got killed in that chariot race scene. And Charlton Heston wasn't wearing a wristwatch during it either. But it is absolutely just one of the most spectacular action scenes that was ever filmed. And so there you have it, Ben-Hur, 1953, for number 3 on the list. So that gets us to number 2. Okay, and now we're back for number 2. I had a phone call come in and it disrupted the video. I think this is the 3rd disruption I've had during this video. It's setting a record. But we're at number 2. The number 2 historical drama of all time is another television series, and it is The Crown, 2016, season 1 of The Crown. It's just an incredible historical documentary, not a documentary, historical drama of the life of Queen Elizabeth II from 1947 to 1955 as she's coming into the throne, into the monarchy, and getting her feet under her and really establishing her presence as the monarch of England. And it is acted by Claire Foy in the title role, along with Matt Smith. And the level and detail of research, the acting performances by Claire Foy and Matt Smith, the cinematography, it all combines to just make a wonderful, wonderful historical drama that is a delight to watch. And these aren't even my things. I'm not a big royal person. I'm not a big fan of the royals, but even I could appreciate how well done season 1 of The Crown is. It really captures the personality and the character of Queen Elizabeth II and of England at that time. And for that reason, it does come in at number 2, and I think it well deserves to be at number 2. And that is The Crown 2016. So that leaves number 1. What is number 1? Number 1 was actually my number 1 pick for the top 10 BroTube war movies of all time. But thinking about it, it actually fits much better here as a historical drama than it does as a war movie, because there's no battle scenes in it. You have the Napoleonic Wars as a backdrop, but it is actually the historical drama, the historical tension and conflict between 2 young cavalry officers in the Napoleonic Wars. And I am, of course, talking about the 1977 film by Ridley Scott, The Duelists. And this is Ridley Scott's directorial debut with his movie, The Duelists, that chronicles the life of these 2 young cavalry officers who get into a duel early in their career. And it stars Keith Carradine as the protagonist and Harvey Keitel as the antagonist, whose life is consumed with vengeance against Keith Carradine and his sense of honor. So that every time that every time that Harvey Keitel, his character, his real life character, gets promoted to the same rank as Keith Carradine, he seeks him out wherever he is in the army and then challenges him to a duel. And Ridley Scott shot this on a shoestring budget. I think they had 2 professional lights and 1 professional camera and a cast of 50 total with extras included in that. And he makes it look just like he has a budget of millions with armies on the move. This wonderful scenery recreating the entire look and feel of the Napoleonic Wars, particularly with the uniforms and the style of fightings and the duels. And the duels are spectacular. You have to see this movie just for the duels. And the tension with Keith Carradine as he has to keep track of Harvey Keitel to see if he's been promoted to the same rank so that he can challenge him for a duel, and he has to be on the watch out for it. It's just this wonderful tension through the movie. And the ending is perfect. It's just the perfect ending with the dialogue, the acting, and the culmination of this antagonism, this conflict between Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel. Makes it one of my favorite movies of all time and puts it up here at number 1 on my list. And that is The Duelists by Ridley Scott, 1977. And that's it. That is Grammaticus's top 10 historical dramas of all time. I hope you liked it. Please put your comments down in the comment section below, letting me know what you think the top historical dramas are of all time. And please go down and check out the other booktubers, their videos on the top historical dramas as well. I've got all the links down in the description. And with that, I'm going to call this a wrap before I get another phone call come in and disrupts this video again. And I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.